early on in practice is just trying to see exactly what stage the fish are in. You know, the water's 60.8 degrees here. You can see the trees are budding out, and you know, it's prime time when you know there's going to be a lot of fish should be spawning. But the other big thing here is this lake is a blueback herring lake, and these fish really focus and get on that, and the herring spawn shortly thereafter the bass do. So it happens in April every year. We might be a little bit early, but just based on the conditions that we've got, you know, you got to keep it honest or keep an eye out for it. So I kind of picked this area of the lake here where it's real calm. You know, sometimes you can see them, they'll come up busting and chasing those herring like that just to see if it's happening. So whether they're pre-spawn, spawning, or the herring are spawning, I mean, these fish are definitely always focused on them and always looking for them. So just trying to get a good feel of what's going on. But my gut tells me that this is going to be a lot of shallow fishing, basically sight fishing, you know, fishing docks and things like that for bass that are in some phase of the spawn themselves. And if you can get lucky enough to find an area where there's some bass chasing herring as well, that's just a bonus. Not what you want here, but you know, the thing is, he's up here super shallow chasing bait, so there are going to be bass doing it someplace. There's a good one right there. About a 2-pounder right there. Another one on this one, on that block right there. Good one right there. A big one. They must be really locked on pretty good where they're not chasing bait around much. It's hard to see today, but there's 5 in that pocket right there. There's one right there. That's a good one too. Damn. You know, I just went into this kind of calm pocket. It's cloudy. You know, there's like 5 right in there, and I marked two that are big ones, you know, on bed. So there's obviously a lot of them, like I expected, a lot of them spawning. You know, with these conditions, it's not easy to find that, but I know the section of the lake, and just from the history that I've had here, that, you know, we'll try to find some more. So we'll look around for that, but I'm gonna try to find some other patterns too. So when they're up spawning like this, one of my favorite baits is a Caffeine shad. But here on this lake with all the blueback herring, man, you want to have something that kind of imitates that too. So this Carolina chrome, I mean, it was really made for this region of the country, but this is just a good thing to pitch around and fish in some of these shallow areas and on these points as well where they're at. The first day of practice for me was pretty darn slow. Again, fishing a lot of places that I know that the herring get, trying to keep that honest, and just didn't see a lot of schooling activity. And man, the stripers, just striper after striper. They seem to be a lot more prolific than before. The herring are there. I mean, I'm seeing the herring, the birds are up there, the stripers are up there, they're following my baits, and there's just not a lot of bass. But you know, it's cloudy, it's windy, it's really hard to see. Normally, what I want to do during that herring spawn is I'm just going to drive up there on these shallow clay points and just, you see the bass. They just sitting there waiting for those herring to come. They don't roam around and chase them. They sit there on those points and wait for the herring to come to them. Got him. That's a bass. Good one too. Right on that corner with so much current there. I bet you there's a whole slew of them stacked there. Every bridge is gonna be good. You know, so after practice, you got to do your tackle prep, and this is the time when I kind of go through my game plan and what you want based on the weather conditions, and tie the baits on that you think you're going to do well. And it may not seem like it when you're watching from the outside, but these blueback herring lakes, they're tricky. And during the spawn, the herring spawn especially, God, these fish they get real smart, and you have to throw the right color and the right speed and action. So I'm just rigging up a lot of different stuff, you know, from swim baits to Caffeine shads to a jerkbait. I've caught a lot of fish, and this is a Elite series. This is one that basically I designed this color to be like a smelt, but it's very much like a herring. It's got kind of a blue glimmer side with that kind of greenish, green pumpkin back. And that's what those herring really look like. And you just cast this out there, and instead of jerking it, I basically just reel it and stop it. Reel it and stop it. Those herring swim in a pretty straight line, and just reeling a jerkbait is a good tool. It's all about the conditions. You know, today with it being fairly calm, as long as you got a ripple or a breeze on there, you can get them to bite a moving bait. But if you don't, you know, I'm gonna rig a Carolina rig and a shaky head and a wacky worm, because I know right where they're sitting. So it's a matter of throwing a whole gamut of stuff through there and trying to get one to bite. And there'll be a bunch of them there, and most cases, you're gonna get a couple of bites, and then it's like when you catch one, you pull the whole school off, they follow them out, and it's over. You gotta, maybe you can come back in an hour. And if you happen to hit one of those places right when the herring pull up there, it can be deadly. So this is another bait that I've caught some fish on. It's a Strike King shad. It's basically out of production now. So we have that and a wake shad, and just burning one of these across those points is really good too. I'm gonna have a lot of rods out and be running through a lot of different stuff, just trying to get one bait that they react to. That's what you're hoping for. Today was an absolute grind. You know, I went through the whole first period and really only had one roll on my swim bait and never had any other bites other than a non-scoreable. And I mean, they just were totally gone from a lot of the points that they were on the other day chasing those herring. I never seen one blow up. I never seen any herring. So I really struggled trying to make that work. I seen a few finally, just, you know, a few bass up there, but it just really wasn't happening. Changed up my game plan, and, you know, started throwing a wacky worm on a shaky head and a baby Z2 on an Ed rig, and just kind of sight fishing, you know, just using my eyes out there, just looking for any dark spot, light spot, stump, rock, anything like that, and casting to it and looking for fish on beds. So, you know, I ended up catching a few off beds, and the rest of them were just kind of, you know, blind casting around like that. And finally in the afternoon, I saw a big one just outside of a bed with a small male, and it was really focused on it, and took a little while, but got that baby Z2. I threw a shaky head, I threw a wacky worm, threw all the drop shot, all that, and it just would not do it. But the way that baby Z2 stands up on that Ned head, it couldn't handle it, and I caught it. I think it was a 415, and that's the one that put me in the cut. Not the day I was hoping to have today. It was just real tough, you know, the weather conditions. We didn't get the wind that they forecasted. You know, I had the opportunities and kind of got on a little flurry when we got the wind going, and then it just filtered out. And at the end, again, I kind of got on some of those herring points that the fish were on and just didn't get the right bites. Caught a jillion stripers today and was one quality fish shy of making that cut. And that's the way that it goes. You know, I had a couple of big ones bite, and you know, you're gonna lose some like that, so it just happens to be that. So it's pretty disappointing. I like this lake a lot, you know, I've fished it many times. I really understand what's going on. I found a handful of places I feel like I'd have a pretty good chance to have a big day tomorrow again, but unfortunately that's not the case. So